The quiet of Willow Creek, a small riverside community nestled along the banks of the Missouri River, shattered one cool October evening in 2024. The stars were just starting to pierce the dusk when sirens ripped through the stillness, their wail bouncing off the water. Red and blue lights danced across the ripples as a fire truck rumbled down the gravel lane toward my little cabin. I stood by the fire pit I'd built with my own hands just days before, soot still smudging my fingers, my heart sinking like a stone. Firefighters spilled out of the truck, their boots crunching the earth, and behind them, arms crossed tight, stood Margaret Hensley. She was the Homeowners Association's loudest enforcer, a woman who wielded her clipboard like a scepter. Her voice cut through the chaos. "There it is," she snapped, pointing at my fire pit. "An illegal hazard. He's putting us all at risk." I'm Thomas Reed, a retired welder who'd spent 30 years bending steel under factory heat. I bought this cabin to escape the grind, to sit by the river and watch the world slow down. But Margaret had other plans. I'd done my homework before building that fire pit. I pored over county fire codes, checked the HOA bylaws, hauled river stones, layered gravel, and topped it with a heavy spark guard. It was textbook safe, but Margaret didn't care. She'd been watching me since I moved in 6 months ago, her sharp eyes catching every move I made. The first time we crossed paths, I was clearing dead branches by the riverbank. "Those trees are part of the community view," she'd said, her voice clipped under a wide-brimmed hat. "You need board approval to touch them." I'd explained they were rotting, a danger if they fell, but she'd just smirked and walked off. That was my welcome to Willow Creek's HOA. Ignoring her was like ignoring a hornet. You might not see the sting coming, but you'd feel it. That night, as the firefighters circled my fire pit, their flashlights sweeping like hawks, the HOA board trailed behind Margaret, murmuring among themselves. My chest tightened. I thought they'd douse the flames, maybe drag me before the board for a lecture. But then the fire chief, a grizzled man named Paul Whitaker, crouched low, ran his hand over the stones, and stood with a nod. "This is one of the safest setups I've seen," he said, his voice carrying over the crowd. "Whoever built this knew their stuff." Margaret's jaw dropped. The board members froze. I stood there, stunned, not by fear anymore, but by vindication. Then Paul turned to Margaret, his eyes narrowing. "What exactly was the emergency here, ma'am?" Her face paled, and in that moment, I knew something bigger was about to unravel. Margaret stammered, her hands twitching. "It's dangerous," she insisted. "Open flames in a dry season. He could burn this whole place down." Paul crossed his arms. "This pit's got gravel, a spark guard, and a hose nearby. It's better than code." The crowd neighbors who'd gathered like moths to a flame started whispering. Margaret's authority, her iron grip on Willow Creek, cracked just a little. She tried again, her voice rising. "He's always breaking rules. He cuts trees, parks his truck too close to the river." But Paul wasn't having it. "Ma'am, 911 is for emergencies, not grudges. False calls waste our time. That's a problem." The whispers grew louder. Margaret looked small for the first time, her power slipping like sand through her fingers. I'd moved to Willow Creek for peace. After decades of sweat and steel, I wanted to hear the river's murmur, to roast marshmallows, to feel alive again. The cabin wasn't much peeling paint, a creaky deck, but it was mine. At first, the HOA seemed harmless. Newsletters about potlucks, reminders to trim hedges. But Margaret turned it into a battlefield. Her first letter came a month in. "Your mailbox is the wrong shade of green." Then another. "Your deck violates community aesthetics." Each note bore her signature, her obsession with control bleeding through the ink. Neighbors told me stories how she'd forced one family to repaint their house for a non-compliant blue, how she'd called animal control on a barking puppy. I tried to stay polite, waving when she passed, even offering to help with her groceries once. She'd glared like I'd offered her poison. The fire pit was my dream, a nod to nights spent with my late wife, Sarah, around campfires with our kids, laughing under the stars. I built it with care, every stone placed like a promise. The first night I lit it, the flames crackling softly, Margaret appeared at the edge of my yard, her phone flashing as she snapped photos. "This is a violation," she hissed. I offered her a marshmallow. She stormed off. 2 days later, she called 911. After Paul's praise that night, Margaret doubled down. She started snapping photos of my cabin, my dock, even my truck, building a case of imaginary violations. Letters piled up. My dock was too long, my grass too tall, my porch lights too bright. Each one stung, but I wasn't new to pressure. Steel doesn't bend without a fight, and neither do I. My neighbor, Henry Larson, a quiet man with a silver beard, stopped by one evening with a root beer and a folding chair. "You're not alone," he said. "She's driven good people out before. But folks are noticing you don't back down." His wife, Clara, brought cookies the next day, her hug warmer than the fire pit's glow. "You're the kind of neighbor we need," she said. Then came the orange sign. It appeared on my lawn one morning, bold and ugly. "Unsafe fire pit. Hazard to community. Remove immediately." Margaret's name wasn't on it, but her fingerprints were. Neighbors gawked, kids pointed, and whispers spread like wildfire. I wanted to tear it down, but instead, I took photos and drove to the fire station. Paul Whitaker's jaw tightened when he saw the sign. "This is dangerous," he said. "It misleads people. I'll write a statement." His letter, sharp and official, praised my pit and called out the sign as a lie. I taped it next to Margaret's sign, letting the truth speak louder. But Margaret wasn't done. 2 nights later, a crash woke me. My fire pit was wrecked, stone scattered, spark guard bent, gravel kicked into the grass. Vandalism, plain and simple. I called the sheriff. Deputy Laura Gaines arrived, her eyes sharp as she photographed the damage. "Anyone with a grudge?" she asked. I didn't need to say Margaret's name. She'd had run-ins with Laura before. The community started to shift. At a potluck on Henry and Clara's deck, neighbors shared stories of Margaret's bullying. "She fined me for my mailbox," one said. "She called my kid's swing set a hazard," another added. Unity grew like embers catching kindling. Then, one night, sirens wailed again. This time, it wasn't my fire pit. Smoke billowed from Margaret's cabin. I ran toward it, heart pounding, and found her frozen on her porch, flames licking her deck. "Margaret, move!" I shouted, pulling her to safety. Neighbors grabbed hoses, buckets, anything to fight the blaze. Paul Whitaker arrived, barking orders, and we held the fire at bay until his crew took over. The cabin survived, barely. The fire marshal's report was clear. The fire started from Margaret's overturned gel fuel bowl, not my pit. But she didn't stop. She posted flyers calling me an arsonist, circulated a petition, even spray-painted "liar" on my dock. At a town hall, she accused me of endangering Willow Creek. I stood, holding Paul's letter and the marshal's report, my voice steady. "I'm not your enemy," I said. "I helped save her home. I followed every rule. Ask who was there with buckets. Ask who fought the fire." The crowd stirred. Then Laura Gaines stepped forward with security footage. Margaret, caught red-handed, vandalizing my pit. The room gasped. The board expelled her on the spot. Margaret didn't quit. She filed a lawsuit, claiming harassment and defamation, demanding my pit's removal. But at the courthouse, with neighbors packing the gallery, the truth crushed her lies. The judge dismissed her case, and the crowd cheered. That night, I lit the fire pit. Henry, Clara, and others gathered, marshmallows roasting, laughter rising. Sarah's words echoed. Kindness is a long game. I'd won, not with rage, but with patience. But as the flames flickered, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? Watch your back." Margaret wasn't gone. Not yet. I looked at the fire, steady behind its guard, and felt Sarah's strength in me. Whatever came next, I'd face it with truth and the neighbors who'd become my family. So what do you think? Was I right to keep fighting with kindness, or should I have hit back harder? Could Margaret ever change, or is she too far gone? Drop your thoughts, your city, or your state below. Let's keep this fire burning.